Welcome to English Bedtime Stories. Listen to the heartwarming stories as you drift off to sleep to help improve your English listening, grammar, and vocabulary while enjoying the positive life lessons from the stories. Our first story is called The Little Plant That Could. Relax, listen, and enjoy the positive message. The message for this story is, be patient, keep believing, and never give up. In a quiet town, there lived a girl named Emily. Emily had a small garden in her backyard. It wasn't a big garden, but it was special to her. She loved planting flowers and vegetables there, even though it wasn't easy. One day, Emily found a tiny seed. She didn't know what kind of plant it would become, but she decided to plant it in her garden. She dug a small hole, placed the seed gently in the soil, and covered it with earth. Then, she watered it carefully. Every day, Emily visited the seed. She gave it water, and sometimes she talked to it. "Grow strong, little seed," she would say. "You can do it." But as the days passed, nothing happened. The seed didn't sprout. It just stayed there, hidden under the soil. Emily started to worry. Maybe it's too cold, she thought. Or maybe the soil isn't good enough. But she didn't give up. She kept watering the seed and talking to it every day. Weeks went by, and still, nothing happened. The other plants in her garden grew tall and strong, but the little seed remained buried and silent. Emily's friends told her to plant something else. "That seed will never grow," they said. But Emily shook her head. She believed in the little seed. Then, one morning, something wonderful happened. Emily went to her garden as usual, and there, where the seed was planted, she saw a tiny green sprout. It was so small that she almost missed it, but it was there, reaching up towards the sunlight. Emily was overjoyed. She knelt down and whispered, "You did it. I knew you could." The little plant grew stronger every day. It was a slow process, but Emily didn't mind. She was patient. She knew that good things take time. The plant grew leaves, then buds, and one day, it bloomed into the most beautiful flower Emily had ever seen. It was a bright, cheerful yellow, like a little sun in her garden. People from the neighborhood came to see the flower. They couldn't believe that such a small seed could grow into something so beautiful. "How did you do it?" they asked. Emily just smiled and said, "I didn't give up on it." As the seasons changed, the flower continued to bloom. It brought joy to everyone who saw it. And every time Emily looked at it, she remembered the lesson she had learned. Sometimes, the most wonderful things in life start small and take time to grow. As you close your eyes tonight, remember the little plant that could. Sometimes, things don't happen as quickly as we want them to, but that doesn't mean they won't happen. Be patient, keep believing, and never give up. Good things are on their way, just like that tiny seed that grew into a beautiful flower. Our next story is The Boy and the Lost Puppy. In a small village, surrounded by hills and forests, lived a young boy named Noah. Noah was a kind-hearted boy who loved animals, especially dogs. He dreamed of having a puppy of his own, but his family couldn't afford one. One rainy afternoon, as Noah was walking home from school, he heard a faint whimpering sound. He stopped and listened carefully. The sound was coming from behind some bushes near the road. Curious, Noah pushed the branches aside and found a small, shivering puppy. The puppy was wet, dirty, and looked very scared. Noah's heart melted. He knew the puppy was lost. "Don't worry, little one," he whispered. "I'll take care of you." He gently picked up the puppy and tucked it under his jacket to keep it warm. Then, he hurried home. When Noah's mother saw the puppy, she was surprised but not angry. She saw the concern in Noah's eyes and knew he couldn't leave the puppy alone in the cold. "We'll take care of it for now," she said, "but we need to find its owner." Noah nodded, though a part of him wished the puppy could stay with him forever. He dried the puppy off, gave it some food, and made a cozy bed for it in a basket. The puppy wagged its tail and licked Noah's hand, as if to say thank you. Noah named the puppy Max. Over the next few days, Noah and Max became inseparable. They played together, went for walks, and slept side by side. Max followed Noah everywhere, and Noah felt a happiness he had never known before. But Noah knew that Max might belong to someone else. So, he and his mother put up posters around the village, hoping to find the puppy's owner. Every time the doorbell rang, Noah's heart sank a little, thinking it might be someone coming to claim Max. One evening, as Noah was feeding Max, there was a knock on the door. A man stood there, holding one of the posters. His eyes lit up when he saw Max. "That's my dog," he exclaimed. "I've been looking for him everywhere." Noah felt a lump in his throat. He knew what he had to do, but it wasn't easy. "His name is Max," Noah said softly, handing the puppy over to the man. The man smiled and patted Noah on the shoulder. "Thank you for taking care of him," he said. "You've done a good thing." As the man walked away with Max, Noah watched them go, tears welling up in his eyes. His mother hugged him and said, "I'm proud of you, Noah. You did the right thing." That night, Noah felt lonely without Max by his side. But he knew that Max was back where he belonged, and that made him feel a little better. Just as he was about to fall asleep, there was a soft knock on the door. Noah's mother opened it, and to their surprise, the man was back, with Max in his arms. "I've been thinking," the man said. "Max seems very happy here. Would you like to keep him?" Noah couldn't believe his ears. "Really?" he asked, his face lighting up with joy. The man nodded. "Max deserves a good home, and I can see he's found one with you." From that day on, Max became a permanent member of Noah's family. The two were never apart, and their bond grew stronger every day. Noah learned that sometimes, doing the right thing can bring the greatest rewards. As you close your eyes tonight, remember Noah and Max. Sometimes, letting go of something you love is the hardest thing to do, but when you do what's right, good things often come back to you. Sleep well, and dream of all the happiness that awaits you tomorrow. Our next story is called The Kindness of Strangers. In the heart of a busy city, where the streets were always crowded and the lights never seemed to dim, lived a teenager named Alex. Alex loved the energy of the city, the tall buildings, the honking cars, and the people rushing by. But sometimes, in such a big place, it was easy to feel small and alone. One chilly evening, as Alex was walking home from school, he noticed an old woman standing at the corner of a busy intersection. She looked confused and a little scared. The cars zoomed past her, and people hurried by without noticing her. Alex could see that she needed help, so he walked over and asked, "Are you okay, ma'am? Do you need help?" The old woman smiled at him, but her eyes were filled with worry. "Thank you, dear," she said. "I'm trying to get to the bus stop, but I'm not sure which way to go. My eyesight isn't what it used to be." Alex looked around and realized that the bus stop was on the other side of the street. "I can help you," he said. "I'll walk with you." Carefully, Alex took the old woman's hand and led her across the street. He moved slowly, making sure she was safe. The city's noise seemed to fade away as they walked together, and for a moment, everything felt calm. When they reached the bus stop, the old woman thanked Alex with a warm smile. "You're very kind," she said. "Not everyone would take the time to help a stranger." Alex felt a warmth in his heart as he watched the old woman board her bus. He waved goodbye and started to head home. As he walked, he thought about how many people must feel lost or alone in such a big city, and how a small act of kindness could make a big difference. The next day, while walking to school, Alex saw a girl standing in front of a cafe, looking nervous. She was holding a piece of paper and seemed to be lost. Alex approached her and asked, "Are you looking for something?" The girl nodded. "I'm supposed to meet my mom here, but I can't find the right cafe. There are so many, and they all look the same." Alex took a look at the paper and realized the cafe she was looking for was just around the corner. "I know where it is," he said. "I can take you there." The girl's face lit up with relief. "Thank you so much," she said. Together, they walked to the cafe, and when they arrived, the girl's mother was waiting outside, looking worried. When she saw her daughter, her face brightened with joy. She thanked Alex for his help, and Alex felt that same warm feeling in his heart again. As the days passed, Alex found more and more opportunities to help people in the city. Whether it was giving directions, carrying someone's groceries, or simply smiling at a passerby, he realized that small acts of kindness could make the big city feel a little less lonely. One day, as he was helping a man pick up some papers that had blown out of his hands, the man said, "You're a good kid, you know that. It's people like you who make this city a better place." Alex smiled and replied,
"Thank you, but I think anyone can make a difference. You just have to notice when someone needs help."
Remember that no matter how big the world may seem, small acts of kindness can make it feel like home. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with the warmth of caring hearts and the magic of helping others. Our next story is The Cat Who Found a Family. In a small, friendly neighborhood, there was a stray cat named Whiskers. Whiskers had no home, but he was a clever and independent cat. He knew how to find food and a warm place to sleep. But even though he could take care of himself, Whiskers was lonely. He watched the other cats with their families, and he wished he had a family of his own. Every evening, Whiskers would sit on a fence and watch the houses as the lights came on, one by one. He could see families inside, laughing, talking, and enjoying their dinners. It made him feel a little sad, but he tried not to think about it too much. Instead, he would wander the streets, looking for scraps of food. One day, as Whiskers was walking past a small house, he heard a soft voice. "Hello, Kitty," the voice said. Whiskers turned to see a girl standing in the doorway. She had bright eyes and a kind smile. "Are you hungry?" she asked, holding out a small bowl of food. Whiskers hesitated at first. He wasn't used to people being so kind to him. But the food smelled delicious, and he was very hungry. Slowly, he walked over to the girl and began to eat. The girl watched him with a gentle expression. "You can come here anytime," she said. "My name is Lily." After that, Whiskers started visiting Lily's house every day. She would always have a bowl of food ready for him, and sometimes she would sit on the steps and talk to him while he ate. Whiskers grew to trust Lily and even started to let her pet him. Her touch was warm and soft, and Whiskers began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: love. As the days turned into weeks, Lily's family noticed how much Whiskers liked spending time with her. They started leaving their door open a little so that Whiskers could come inside if he wanted. At first, he was unsure, but one chilly evening, he decided to take a chance. He stepped through the door and into the warmth of the house. Lily's parents smiled when they saw Whiskers inside. They had been hoping he would come in. They placed a soft blanket by the fireplace for him to sleep on, and that night, for the first time in a long time, Whiskers slept soundly, feeling safe and warm. Over time, Whiskers became a part of Lily's family. He had his own spot by the fire, his own food dishes, and even a little toy mouse that Lily had given him. Whiskers was no longer a stray, he had found his home. Lily loved Whiskers with all her heart, and Whiskers loved her too. He followed her everywhere she went, and every night, he would curl up at the foot of her bed, purring softly as she fell asleep. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Lily's mother said, "Whiskers, you're a part of our family now. We're so glad you found us." Whiskers looked up at her with his big, green eyes and purred even louder, as if to say, "Thank you for finding me." Remember that love and kindness can turn strangers into family, and that there's always a warm place for those who need it. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with love and comfort. Our next story is titled, The Snowman's Secret. In a quaint village nestled in the mountains, winters were long and snowy. Every year, the children in the village looked forward to building snowmen in the big open field at the center of town. They would work together, rolling the snow into big balls, stacking them on top of each other, and adding scarves, hats, and even buttons to create the perfect snowmen. One winter, after a particularly heavy snowfall, a group of children built the biggest snowman they had ever made. They gave him a bright red scarf, a tall yellow hat, and a carrot for a nose. They even used shiny pebbles for his eyes, making him look cheerful and kind. The children named him Mr. Frost. For days, Mr. Frost stood tall in the field, watching over the village. The children visited him every day, playing in the snow around him, telling him their secrets, and pretending he was their friend. But as the days went by, the weather grew warmer, and the snow started to melt. The children knew that soon Mr. Frost would be gone. One evening, just before bedtime, a girl named Sophie stood by Mr. Frost. She felt sad thinking about how he would melt away. "I wish you didn't have to leave, Mr. Frost," she whispered. "I wish you could stay with us forever." To her surprise, the snowman's eyes seemed to twinkle in the moonlight. Sophie blinked, wondering if she was just imagining it. But then, she heard a soft voice, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "Don't be sad, Sophie," the voice said. "I have a secret to share with you." Sophie looked around, but there was no one else in the field. "Who's there?" she asked, her heart beating fast. "It's me, Mr. Frost," the voice replied. "I can't stay forever, but I have a special gift for you and your friends." Sophie was amazed. She had never heard a snowman talk before. "What gift?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. When the snow melts, it doesn't disappear, Mr. Frost explained. It turns into water, and that water goes into the ground. It helps the flowers grow, the trees to bloom, and the rivers to flow. So, even though I won't be here as a snowman, I'll still be here, helping the world around you. Sophie smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. So you're not really leaving, she said softly. You're just changing. Exactly, Mr. Frost said. And when winter comes again, I'll be back, just like before. You and your friends can build me again, and we'll have more fun together. Sophie nodded, feeling comforted by the snowman's words. She promised to tell the other children, so they wouldn't be sad when the snow melted. Thank you, Mr. Frost, she said. I'll remember your secret. The next day, Sophie told her friends what Mr. Frost had said. At first, they were surprised, but as they looked at the snowman, they could almost see the twinkle in his eyes, just as Sophie had described. The children decided to celebrate Mr. Frost and the snow by making snow angels, having snowball fights, and enjoying every moment they had left of winter. When spring arrived and the snow began to melt, the children weren't sad. They knew that Mr. Frost was still with them, in the flowers, the trees, and the sparkling rivers. And when the next winter came, they were excited to build him again, knowing that he would always be part of their village, no matter the season. Remember that even when things change or seem to go away, they can come back in new and wonderful ways. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with the magic of the seasons. The next story is called The Last Shot. In the small town of Brooksville, the high school basketball team, the Brooksville Tigers, was known for its spirit and determination. The team was made up of players from all walks of life, each with their own dreams and goals. Among them was a young player named Jake, who had always dreamed of making a difference on the court. Jake had joined the team in his senior year. He was not the tallest or the fastest player, but he loved the game and gave it his all. His teammates admired his enthusiasm and hard work, but Jake often found himself sitting on the bench during games. He was determined to prove himself, but it seemed like the opportunity to shine never came. One evening, as the final game of the season approached, the Tigers faced their toughest opponent, the rival team, the Red Hawks. The game was held in a packed gymnasium, and the energy was electric. The Tigers had made it to the championship game, but they were trailing by a few points with only seconds left on the clock. Coach Thompson, the Tigers' coach, was pacing the sidelines, trying to come up with a strategy to win. He called a timeout and gathered the team around him. "We need a plan to turn this around," he said. "But more than that, we need to play with heart." The players nodded, each feeling the weight of the game on their shoulders. Jake, who had been sitting on the bench, felt a surge of excitement. He knew that this might be his only chance to make a difference. Coach Thompson looked at Jake and said, "Jake, I want you to go in. We need fresh energy and someone who believes in the team." Jake's eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly nodded. "I'll do my best," he said, feeling both nervous and thrilled. He took his place on the court as the final seconds of the game ticked away. The game resumed, and the Tigers played with all their might. Jake hustled up and down the court, passing the ball, playing defense, and doing everything he could to support his teammates. With just a few seconds left, the Tigers were still down by 2 points. As the clock wound down, Jake found himself in a position he had always dreamed of. The ball was passed to him, and he was open for a 3-point shot. The gym fell silent, every eye watching him as he took the shot. Time seemed to slow down as the ball soared through the air. Jake held his breath, his heart pounding. The ball swished through the net just as the buzzer sounded, and the gym erupted in cheers. The Tigers had won the game by a single point. Jake's teammates rushed to him, lifting him up in celebration. Coach Thompson beamed with pride. "You did it, Jake. You took the shot and made it count. You believed in yourself and your team." As the Tigers celebrated their victory, Jake realized that the game wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about teamwork, perseverance, and seizing the moment when it came. He had learned that even when you're not the star player, you can still make a difference with hard work and a positive attitude. Remember that opportunities come to those who are ready to embrace them, and that every team member plays a vital role in achieving success. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with the spirit of teamwork, determination, and the joy of giving your best. Our next story is The Fisherman's Promise. In a small coastal village, where the air was always salty, and the waves sang their lullabies every night, lived a young man named Samuel. Samuel had grown up by the sea, and it was as much a part of him as the beating of his heart. His father was a fisherman, just like his father before him, and Samuel loved nothing more than to join him on his boat, the Seagull, as they sailed out to the open water. Every morning, before the sun had fully risen, Samuel and his father would set out in the Seagull. Samuel would watch the horizon, where the sky met the sea, and feel the cool breeze on his face. His father would tell him stories about the sea, about the fish they would catch, the storms they had weathered, and the mysteries that lay beneath the waves. As he grew older, Samuel learned all the skills a fisherman needed. He learned to mend nets, to read the weather, and to navigate by the stars. But most of all, he learned to respect the sea, for his father always told him, "The sea is our friend, but it's also wild and strong. We must always treat it with care." One summer evening, after a long day on the water, Samuel and his father sat together on the shore, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the sea sparkled like a million diamonds. "Someday, this will all be yours," his father said, gesturing to the boat and the wide open ocean. "But remember, Samuel, the sea gives, and the sea takes. Always be grateful for its gifts." Samuel nodded, feeling a deep connection to the sea that he couldn't quite put into words. He knew that he would spend his life by the water, just like his father and his grandfather before him. Years passed, and Samuel grew into a strong young man. He continued to fish with his father, and the Seagull became like a second home to him. The village knew him as a skilled and kind fisherman, always ready to share his catch with those in need. One autumn day, a fierce storm rolled in unexpectedly. The wind howled, and the waves crashed against the shore with a force Samuel had never seen before. The villagers hurried to secure their homes, and Samuel and his father rushed to bring the Seagull to safety. But as they battled the storm, a strong wave hit their boat, throwing Samuel's father overboard. Without thinking, Samuel dove into the raging sea after him. The water was cold and rough, and it took all of Samuel's strength to reach his father and bring him back to the boat. With great effort, Samuel managed to pull his father aboard and steer the Seagull back to the safety of the harbor. They were exhausted, but alive. The storm passed, and the village came together to celebrate their survival. Samuel's father looked at him with pride. "You were brave today, Samuel. You kept your promise to the sea and to our family." From that day on, Samuel took over as the captain of the Seagull. His father, now older, stayed on shore, but he watched with pride as Samuel continued the family tradition. And every evening, after a day on the water, Samuel would sit by the shore, watching the sunset, just as he had done with his father. He would listen to the waves and feel the deep connection to the sea that had been passed down through generations. Remember the importance of tradition, family, and the respect we must show to the world around us. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with the gentle sound of the waves and the warmth of a promise kept. The name of our next story is The Science Fair Surprise. In a lively little town, there was a school where students loved to learn and explore new things. Among them was a girl named Emily. Emily was a curious and imaginative student, always full of ideas. But there was one thing that made her nervous: science. The equations, experiments, and formulas often left her feeling confused, and she started to believe that she just wasn't good at it. One day, their teacher, Mrs. Parker, announced that the school would be hosting a science fair. All the students were expected to participate, and they could choose any topic they liked. Emily's classmates were excited, chattering about the cool projects they would create. But Emily felt a knot of worry in her stomach. She wasn't sure she could come up with a good idea, let alone make it work. That evening, Emily sat at her desk, thinking hard about what she could do. She loved art, she loved animals, and she loved being creative, but she didn't know how to connect those passions with science. After hours of thinking and feeling frustrated, she almost gave up. But then, an idea popped into her head. The next day, Emily approached Mrs. Parker. "I have an idea for the science fair," she said, still a little unsure of herself. "But I'm not sure if it's really science." Mrs. Parker smiled kindly. "There's science in everything, Emily. What's your idea?" Emily took a deep breath and explained, "I want to make a model of a beehive and show how bees communicate through dance. I could create little bee figures and use them to demonstrate the different types of dances bees do to tell each other where to find flowers." Mrs. Parker's eyes lit up. "That's a wonderful idea. Bees are fascinating creatures, and their dances are a perfect example of how animals use science in their daily lives. I think you'll do great." Encouraged by her teacher's words, Emily set to work. She spent weeks researching bees, learning about their behavior, and figuring out how to turn her idea into a project. She used clay to mold little bees and painted a cardboard box to look like a beehive. She even learned how to make a simple animation with drawings to show the bees' dances in action. As the science fair approached, Emily still felt nervous, but she was also proud of the work she had done. On the day of the fair, the school gym was filled with colorful displays and excited students showing off their projects. Emily set up her beehive model and waited for the judges to come by. When they arrived at her table, Emily took a deep breath and began to explain her project. She talked about how bees use the waggle dance to tell other bees where to find flowers and how the round dance signals that flowers are nearby. She showed them her animated bee dance and the model of the beehive she had created. The judges listened carefully, nodding and smiling as Emily spoke. When she finished, they praised her for her creativity and how well she had combined science with her love for art. Emily felt her confidence growing, realizing that science wasn't so scary after all. At the end of the day, the principal announced the winners of the science fair. Emily held her breath, not expecting much but happy she had tried. When they called her name for second place, she couldn't believe it. She walked up to the stage, her heart pounding, and accepted her ribbon with a big smile on her face. As she returned to her display, Mrs. Parker met her with a proud look. "You did it, Emily. You combined what you love with something new and created something amazing. This is just the beginning, you can do anything you set your mind to." Emily realized that the science fair wasn't just about winning a ribbon. It was about learning that she could do things she never thought possible if she believed in herself and tried her best. From that day on, Emily no longer feared science. She embraced it, knowing that with a little creativity and a lot of determination, she could succeed. Remember that trying new things and believing in yourself can lead to wonderful surprises. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with creativity, curiosity, and the joy of learning. The name of our next story is Study Buddy. In the town of Crestwood, there was a high school student named Mia who was known for her kindness and curiosity. She loved learning new things, but when it came to studying for exams, she often felt overwhelmed. The books seemed endless, and the notes were confusing. Despite her best efforts, Mia struggled to keep up with her classes. One day, as she was studying in the school library, her friend Jake noticed her frustration. "Hey, Mia," he said, "you look like you could use some help. Do you want to study together?" Mia looked up, surprised. "I'd love to, but I'm not sure how to make studying work for me. It's just so hard to stay focused and remember everything." Jake smiled. "I used to feel the same way. But I found some techniques that really helped me. Maybe they'll work for you too." Mia agreed, and they set up a study session in the library. Jake shared a few tips that had helped him. 1. Break it down. Instead of trying to study everything at once, break it down into smaller sections. Focus on one topic at a time, and give yourself short breaks in between. 2. Active learning. Don't just read your notes. Try summarizing them in your own words, teaching them to someone else, or making flashcards to test yourself. 3. Create a study schedule. Set up a study schedule with specific times for each subject. It helps to keep track of what you've covered and what needs more attention. 4. Stay organized. Keep your notes and study materials organized. It makes it easier to find what you need and helps you stay focused. 5. Stay positive. Believe in yourself and stay positive. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's important to keep trying. As Mia and Jake worked through the study techniques, Mia began to notice a difference. Breaking her study sessions into smaller parts made the material feel more manageable. Using flashcards helped her remember key points, and having a study schedule kept her on track. Most importantly, the positive mindset she practiced made her feel more confident. With Jake's help, Mia's grades started to improve, and she felt more in control of her learning. She found that studying could actually be enjoyable when she approached it with the right strategies. One day, after an important exam, Mia received her results and was thrilled to see that she had done really well. She couldn't wait to share the news with Jake. "Thank you for your help," she said with a big smile. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jake grinned. "I'm glad I could help. Remember, it's all about finding what works best for you and staying motivated. You've got this." She continued to use the study techniques she had learned and even started helping other classmates who were struggling. She realized that learning how to study effectively was not just about getting good grades, but about developing skills that would help her throughout her life. Remember that with the right strategies and a positive attitude, you can overcome challenges and achieve your goals. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with confidence, organization, and the joy of learning. This next story is called The Magic of the Old Oak Tree. In a quiet village surrounded by lush forests, there stood a grand old oak tree. This tree was special to everyone in the village. It had been there for hundreds of years, and people believed it had a kind of magic. The villagers often said that if you sat under the oak tree and made a wish with a pure heart, your wish would come true. A boy named Leo lived in the village. Leo loved the old oak tree. Every day after school, he would go there to play or to sit quietly, feeling the cool breeze rustle through the leaves. But lately, Leo had been feeling sad. His best friend, Ava, had moved away to another town, and Leo missed her very much. One afternoon, Leo decided to visit the oak tree. He sat down on the soft grass beneath its wide branches and closed his eyes. He thought about Ava and all the fun they used to have together. Then, he whispered, "I wish Ava didn't have to move so far away. I wish we could still be friends." The tree's leaves rustled gently as if they were listening to Leo's wish. Leo didn't expect anything to happen, but he felt a little better just saying the words out loud. The next day at school, Leo found a letter in his desk. It was from Ava. She had written to tell him how much she missed him and how she wished they could still play together like before. Leo's heart lifted as he read the letter. Ava suggested that they become pen pals, writing letters to each other every week. Leo couldn't believe it. It was almost as if the old oak tree had heard his wish and made it come true in a different way. He quickly wrote back to Ava, telling her all about the village, the school, and the old oak tree. He even drew a picture of the tree to show her where he made his wish. As the weeks passed, Leo and Ava exchanged letters regularly. They shared stories, drawings, and even small gifts they made for each other. Even though they were far apart, their friendship grew stronger with each letter. Leo would often take Ava's letters to the oak tree and read them there, feeling like she was right there with him. One day, Leo received a special letter from Ava. She wrote that her family was coming back to the village to visit for the summer. Leo was overjoyed. He couldn't wait to show Ava all the changes in the village and introduce her to new friends. When summer came, Ava returned to the village. The first place they went together was the old oak tree. They sat under its wide branches, just like they used to, and laughed and talked for hours. Leo realized that the tree's magic wasn't just about granting wishes. It was also about bringing people together, no matter how far apart they were. Remember that true friendship can withstand any distance, and sometimes, the things we wish for come true in ways we never expect. Sleep well, and let your dreams be as magical as that old oak tree. Our next story is The Little Lantern That Shined Bright. In a small village at the edge of a great forest, there was an old man named Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris was known for his kindness and his collection of beautiful lanterns. Every evening, he would light the lanterns and hang them outside his house. The soft, warm glow of the lanterns brought comfort to everyone who passed by. One winter, a big storm hit the village. The wind howled, and the snow fell heavily, covering the village in a thick white blanket. The storm knocked out the power, and the village was plunged into darkness. The people huddled in their homes, cold and scared. Mr. Harris looked at his lanterns and knew he had to help. He quickly lit each one and placed them outside his house, but he didn't stop there. He carefully carried the lanterns to his neighbors' houses, hanging them on their doors and windows. The lanterns gave off a soft light, enough to see the paths and keep the darkness at bay. As Mr. Harris was hanging his last lantern, he noticed a small, broken lantern at the back of his shelf. It was an old, rusty lantern with cracked glass. He had never used it because it was so worn out, but something about it caught his eye. This little lantern deserves a chance to shine, Mr. Harris thought. He carefully lit the lantern, and to his surprise, it glowed brighter than any of the others. The light was warm and steady, and it seemed to have a special glow that filled the room with a sense of peace. Mr. Harris decided to place the little lantern at the entrance of the village, where the road began. It was the darkest spot, and he thought the bright light might help guide anyone who needed it. That night, a traveler was lost in the storm, struggling to find his way. He had been traveling for hours, cold and tired, with no idea where he was. Just as he was about to give up, he saw a tiny light in the distance. It was the little lantern that Mr. Harris had placed at the village entrance. The traveler followed the light, and it led him safely to the village. When he arrived, he knocked on Mr. Harris's door, thanking him for saving his life. "I was lost in the storm," the traveler said, "but your lantern showed me the way." Mr. Harris smiled and looked at the little lantern, glowing brightly on the table. "Even the smallest light can guide someone home," he said softly. When the storm finally passed, the villagers gathered to thank Mr. Harris for his kindness. But Mr. Harris shook his head. "It wasn't just me," he said, pointing to the little lantern. "This old lantern, which I thought was broken, shined the brightest of all." The villagers were amazed and touched by the story. From that day on, they treasured the little lantern, and it became a symbol of hope and light in the darkest times. No matter how small or broken you may feel, you have the power to bring light to someone's life. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with warmth and hope. Our final story for tonight is The Neighborhood Garden. In a peaceful suburban neighborhood, where houses lined the streets and children played in the yards, there was a small, empty lot at the end of Maple Street. For years, the lot had been overgrown with weeds and covered in litter. It was the one spot in the neighborhood that everyone avoided, but no one knew what to do with it. One spring day, a new family moved into the house next to the lot. They were the Thompsons, a mother, a father, and their daughter, Lily. Lily was a curious and creative girl who loved spending time outdoors. When she saw the empty lot, she didn't see an eyesore, she saw potential. "Mom, Dad," Lily said one evening as they were having dinner, "what if we turned that empty lot into a garden? We could grow flowers and vegetables, and everyone in the neighborhood could help." Her parents smiled at the idea. "That's a wonderful idea, Lily," her mother said. "But it will take a lot of work. Do you think the neighbors will want to help?" Lily nodded confidently. "I think if we ask, they'll want to join in. It could be a garden for the whole neighborhood." The next day, Lily and her parents went door to door, talking to their neighbors about the idea. At first, some people were hesitant. They were busy with work, kids, and other responsibilities. But when Lily shared her vision of a beautiful garden where everyone could come together, the neighbors began to get excited. Soon, the whole neighborhood was involved. On weekends, families gathered at the lot, pulling weeds, picking up trash, and preparing the soil. Someone brought old tools from their garage, and another neighbor donated seeds and plants. Even the kids helped by carrying small buckets of water and planting seeds. As the weeks went by, the lot transformed. Bright flowers began to bloom, and rows of vegetables sprouted from the earth. A group of neighbors built wooden benches, where people could sit and enjoy the garden. Someone painted a colorful sign that read, Maple Street Community Garden. The garden became the heart of the neighborhood. On warm evenings, families would gather there, sharing stories, laughter, and the fruits of their labor, literally. They picked tomatoes, cucumbers, and fresh herbs, and some neighbors even started cooking meals together using the vegetables they had grown. Lily loved spending time in the garden. She made new friends with kids she hadn't known before, and she learned so much about gardening from the older neighbors. But what made her happiest was seeing how the garden brought everyone together. People who had never spoken before were now chatting and laughing like old friends. One day, as Lily was watering the flowers, an elderly neighbor named Mr. Jenkins came up to her. He had lived in the neighborhood for many years and had seen it change over time. With a gentle smile, he said, "Lily, you've done something very special here. This garden isn't just about flowers and vegetables. It's about community. You've helped us all come together, and that's something to be proud of." Lily blushed and smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins," she said. "But I couldn't have done it without everyone's help." As the seasons changed, the garden grew and flourished. In the fall, they held a harvest festival, where everyone brought dishes made from the garden's produce. They lit lanterns, played music, and celebrated all the hard work they had done together. Remember that even the smallest idea can grow into something beautiful when people come together. Sleep well, and let your dreams be filled with the colors of a blooming garden and the warmth of a caring community. Thanks so much for watching, and we wish you the best of luck with your studies. Sweet dreams.